Welcome to BA Chats. I'm your host, Kevin Kuntz, and right next to me is the lovely, and may I say, by the way, 21-year marriage partner in life, Rachel Kuntz.
21 years. High five and a fist bump, baby.
Yes.
Way to go, Kuntz.
Our marriage is now legal to drink.
That's right. That should be said. That should be recognized. You're listening to BA Chats. Thank you so much. We always want to remind you guys that we're trying to accomplish two major things.
Yes.
And we here at BA Chats believe that testimony, the word testimony, means do it again, God. So anything that you hear on this chat, the things that Jesus is doing through people's life, it's an open door. It's an invitation for the Lord to do wonderful things in your life. So let your heart rise up and say, God, do it again. Do it in me. Do it in my life. Do it again, God.
Exactly. And then the second reason that we do BA Chats is that we have so many wonderful people in our body at Bethel. There's a story behind every person. I mean, there's wonderful stories. There are gold in them, there hills. You know what I mean? So we like to give the opportunity. This is an opportunity and a platform for us to be able to introduce you to some of the greatest people in the world. And so that's what we do.
Like our guest today,
Yep.
Dan, Quin, Weber, that we love. How are you guys doing?
Great. Thanks so much for having us again.
Oh, thank you for coming. We appreciate you guys. Like you said, you have been guests before, and it was phenomenal. We had a good time before. And we were talking basically about what you guys do at Bethel and just who you are. And so I want to do a little bit of that just to reacquaint our audience, but we're actually in to talk about something different. So, Quin, let's start with you. Who are you, girl?
I am Quin Weber, often referred to as Dan Weber's wife, which I'm extremely proud of. I think it's
Absolutely.
super awesome. Yeah. So I just support him and all that he does here at Bethel and stay at home, raise the kids, do the things, run a little bit.
A little bit.
A lot of bit.
That's downplaying it. Just a little bit.
I know.
As she stands there glowing in her beautiful medal,
Yes.
gorgeous medal that we're going to talk about
Sporting the
today.
bling.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. All right, Dan Weber, who are you?
Yep. So I'm the third-year director for BASM, Bethel Anna School of Supernatural Ministry, and also a pastor on staff part-time. So that's what my role is here anyway at Bethel Anna.
Nice. And you guys, thank you for all that you do. We appreciate you, really do. Okay, there's a lot wonderful about Dan and Quin, but what we're talking about tonight is these two are runners. And not like casual, I think I'll take a run runners. I'm talking like 50-mile races. This is the gorgeous medal that Quin has on now. Was it from a recent race? It was 50 miles.
Yeah, it was Saturday.
It's like the passion of life. Like when you talk to Dan and Quin, you always end up talking about running at some point, or when you squeeze them, that's what comes out. Running out.
Awesome.
Typically.
So we're talking running tonight, and the reason why, when you do talk to them, they are so passionate. You guys have made a comment that just has caught my attention, and Dan, you say it. You're going to say it better than me. About it's like a life living
life in a day.
Life in a day.
Living life in a day.
That running these races, these 50-mile, 100-mile races, is that the most?
That's the saying is a 100-mile race is like living life in a day.
Wow, 100-mile race. Okay, so Quin, I'm going to start with you. How in the world did you get started running these races, and were you intending to work your way up to 100 miles?
It's funny. In the beginning, that was not my intention. I didn't even realize ultra running existed.
Ultra running.
Ultra running. Anything beyond 26.2 miles is considered an ultra marathon.
Okay.
So typically like 50K, 50 milers, 100 milers, so on and so forth. And they go beyond 100 milers.
Okay.
Whoa.
So I had no idea that existed. I really just started running to break out of sort of depression and I had anxieties. I had all those kinds of things going on. So I thought maybe exercise would help because I didn't really like the idea of taking medication, and I wasn't quite that far into it. I met with doctors, and they were like, well, you don't really qualify for medication. And I was like, well, I'm having all these issues. And they're like, why don't you try exercise? And I was like, okay. But the issue I had with that was I had a fear of running. A literal fear of running. Like, it brought me so much anxiety that sometimes I would pass out just at the thought. Like, my heart would race. I would feel dizzy. And so-
Literally thinking about it.
yeah, because
Wow.
I just didn't think I could do it. Like, I wanted to do it so bad. I remember telling Daniel, I would see runners pass by, on the road, and I'd be like, oh, I would love to be able to do that, but just couldn't. I just physically didn't think I could. Spiritually, mentally, emotionally, there was just such a block. So,
Was that coming from someplace, or was it just fear and anxiety that you were trying to get out of?
I'm not really sure. I think it came from a fear of just trying anything.
Okay.
And a fear of failure was really just sort of creeping up. And
Wow.
so I started this boot camp that,
Share the piece of before
Yeah.
when you first started to run and you ended up having all those panic attacks.
Oh, yeah.
And had to stop.
it was about, probably 5 years ago, because 4
No,
years.
That was 12 years ago because Jocelyn was just.
Oh, it was just after Josiah was born,
Yeah.
which Josiah is 12.
Before we go on, two beautiful children, Jocelyn and Josiah. We love your kids. They are great kids.
They
They're
love you
wonderful.
guys.
Okay.
They
Yeah.
love you guys.
Okay, so running.
So Josiah was born.
I just want to talk about your kids for a second. Okay.
Josiah was born 12 years ago, and after I had him, I had postpartum depression.
Okay.
Started running, and just casually started running. I mean, it was just little bits here and there. We ran up this hill near our house and stuff. But it was shortly after that, I would have massive anxiety attacks and like almost pass out. I'd just be standing around the house doing something and get extremely dizzy. Just all these crazy symptoms. And
Wow.
yeah, and so I just quit. And I don't think it lasted very long. I think the most I had ran, I got up to maybe 3 miles one time. That's when I ran to Jamie's house. And so I was just like, no way. It was just confirmation. I can't do this. I can't was the, biggest word in my head. So years down the road, 4 years ago, as of today even,
Yep.
I joined this boot camp, and they make you run this mile. And I was like, oh no, not the mile. I can't do that. And I was just like, I can't. And all these other people were out there trying. And these ladies were amazing. And it got so bad that we would do this warm up, and then they go, okay, we're going to go run the mile. And I literally doubled over the fence and threw up my breakfast.
Whoa.
Yeah. And
I haven't heard this part of the story.
and
This
I
is
laid on
great.
I laid on the ground, and she was like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm fine. And I just was so distraught. So I didn't have to run the mile that day. The day after, or whatever, it was like Tuesday. On Thursday, you go back. And so that day they were running the mile. And so she said, just run and then just walk when you feel like you need to. So she just gave me permission to take my time. And so after a while, it took a long time. After a while, I could run the entire mile slowly without stopping.
Whoa.
And
Did
it
that
was-
surprise you?
It so surprised me. And
Wow.
after I did that, I started reaching these tiny little goals. And then one day I went out and I had some time, and I was like, I wonder how I can do today. And I just took off and started running. And when I came back home, I had run 5 miles. And
Whoa.
and I felt okay. I felt good.
Like you didn't stop.
I had stopped and walked a few times.
Sure.
But it was when I got home, I was just shocked at how, because I didn't look at my watch. I just wanted to go and run. And when I got home, it just was crazy. I just couldn't believe it.
So the doctor said exercise, but you were drawn to running.
I was drawn especially to running.
Okay.
And under these people at this boot camp, just creating these small little goals, slowly approaching the word I can't and tackling that word in small goals was just super helpful in the idea. Like I took the big goal of running, being a runner, off the table, and I just reached these small little goals little by little.
And that was
just,
part of the boot camp.
Yeah.
Oh,
and just
great.
allowing myself to walk, which felt like failure to me. If I'm walking, I'm not running, I'm not a runner, I'm failing.
Wow.
And so taking that off the table and allowing myself to just experience a different process was super, super helpful. And so when I reached that 5-mile goal, just the I can't shrunk significantly.
Whoa.
And it's not about what I can do, it's about what I'm going to do, started coming in the picture. And so then I was like, well, if I can run 5 miles in this amount of time, I mean, I can Facebook in that amount of time. Like, what else can I do? You know, so I started just reaching out and started pushing my goals a little bit further, as that I can't shrink due to my actions. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. I'm running.
Whoa,
So
your
if I-
I can't shrink due to your actions.
That's pretty great.
Yeah.
That's helpful, Quin.
So it was a slow and steady slope. After that, I started looking up little races and was like, oh. And then my first race was just more anxiety and, oh my gosh, I can't do this. There's
Really?
so many people here. And I thought,
Remember
go
the
ahead.
first time we ran the 9 miles? We were going for 6.
oh, that was in preparation for like that race. Yeah, we went to Reading, and we're like, oh, it was for Valentine's Day. And we're
Because you
like,
sweet people are from California.
Yeah.
So this is all on the coast.
so we were in Reading for Valentine's Day, and we're like, oh, we'll run along the river there. It's a really pretty trail. And it was like 1,000,000 degrees because Reading is hot. And it was only February, but it was wicked hot, like 85, 90 degrees. But
85, yeah.
anyway, so we start running, and we don't know where we're going. We don't know about, mapping stuff out. We don't know anything. So we're just starting to run. We're like, oh, we'll turn here. We'll turn here. Next thing you know, we're so far out.
Well, we had a 6-mile loop, kind of like planned out, but we missed the turn.
We didn't know where we were going. So we missed the turn. We end up way out on this bridge. We're out of water. We didn't even have water, I don't think, with us.
Didn't have water, didn't have nothing.
We didn't have anything. And then, we're like trying not to panic. I'm like, don't panic. Like, we'll be fine. We're just going to just keep going. And Daniel gets a bloody nose.
Oh, wow.
And we're a mess. We are a hot, hot mess. Happy Valentine's Day, babe.
Welcome to my world.
It was intense. So, but yeah, that was just part of
So
the
we
journey.
get done, and here we ended up running 9 miles, and it was the first time I think I had ever ran past 5 or something like
Oh,
that.
same.
And it was like, oh my gosh, we did it.
You were
We did it.
surprised.
We
Yeah.
did it despite a bloody nose and lack of
Hot weather.
lack of what we thought that we needed in order to get that far. Like, oh, you have to do this in order to run 9 miles. You have to look like this, or you have to train like this, or you have to drink like this. And we just did it. It was a hot mess, but we did it. And we were like, oh, if we can do that, what else can we do?
Whoa.
Yeah.
So, Dan, when did you join Quin on this adventure?
Probably that day in Reading.
Really?
That was the first day.
Did you really pick up and just run 9 miles?
You know,
Oh, my
would-
word.
yeah.
Did
would probably
he?
be the
Quin
case,
is
wouldn't it?
nodding her
Yes.
head.
yeah, because I didn't really run it at
No.
home or anything.
Uh-uh.
No, I mean there was a stretch there when she was running, like when she was having those anxiety attacks early on, where I'd go and do maybe 3 miles or something like that. It never stuck, But I think when we came back around to doing this, and we were in Reading that day, that may have been my first
Yeah.
kind of jump into it.
Okay, so
I'm not
just
sure.
to be clear, there was anxiety there and there was fear there.
Yeah.
A doctor suggested that you exercise.
Yeah.
So you wanted to exercise, but you really wanted to run. Where did
Yeah.
that desire come from?
I think it comes from when I was little.
Okay.
I don't know about you, but in my childhood, there was a lot of kids around, a lot of stuff going on, and my parents we were just nuts. We were crazy kids. And so they would yell at us, go outside and run the field. And so midnight or something, we would be running around outside
Run around that tree.
just all over. She'd say, run, go run to the park and back or whatever. So I just remember as a kid, the greatest feeling of busting out the front door, leaping off the porch and taking off. And it was just so much freedom and so much adventure and so much, curiosity met with just wilderness, And so I think that's what draws me to running is just the feeling of freedom and the feeling of just adventure. And I don't know, sometimes I
Okay.
feel like a pioneer when I'm out there running.
You sound like a pioneer,
Yeah.
which we want to hear all of that.
I feel like a pioneer in my own life half the time when I'm out there running, discovering things that I never knew
Okay.
that were there.
So you were
Beautiful.
drawn to running. But you went to run and anxiety kicked up more.
Yeah. Yeah, it
And
got
you-
worse.
It got worse, which is a thing, dadgummit. That is the
Yeah.
way that goes. But you started making little bitty goals.
Mm-hmm.
The I can't started getting smaller. And the running started going further.
The running started going further.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as I started exploring races, that's when I found on YouTube the first race that I realized was an ultra was the Tahoe Trail 200. And my jaw dropped. I thought, people run 200 miles? This is unbelievable, which led me to look up all these other races. And the places that they went are places that people doing half marathons or 5Ks, and you just don't go.
Right.
200 miles, you travel to places that people just can't get to,
Wow.
which really drew me in.
Okay, so Dan, I've heard you say before that you started running to be with Quin.
Yep. This is true.
So Quin had the bug, but you jumped in and were just a runner? I mean, like you just discovered that you could run.
Yeah, I guess so. I think, I'm naturally athletic, so it's
Obviously.
you
if
kind of jump in. I did the boot camp thing too as well,
Okay.
off and on, very off and on. And so, yeah, I mean, honestly, just kind of just running to hang out with her. It's her passion, it's her dream, it's her vision, which is well beyond anything I could picture in my head. The idea of running even half marathons in those days, it was like, yeah, okay, well, I'll kind of hang out with you and see how this goes.
Those were his exact words.
But you could run.
Yeah, I could do it. I could do it with really really no training. So
To say minimal. You just told us you accidentally ran 9 miles.
right.
And it wasn't a passion. So you were running.
Not
Your
at all.
passion was Quin.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, just serving her and running with her.
Okay. So you guys are running. You work your way up to ultra running. I want to ask, Dan, when did you start? Because you love it now. Is this correct?
I love it now, yeah.
When did this start? When did the love of running start for you?
So, I mean, we started running like 4 years ago. Kind of the progression was, the first year, I think we did a good handful of half marathons and a couple other 5Ks or whatnot. And, at the end, I remember saying, well, I guess this is our normal. So we got to jump to the marathon now. And then we did the marathon the next year, and kind of leading up to that, there was a 30K. And so we just slowly started incrementally adding in. And then the end of the second year, we did our first ultra,
Okay.
the 50K. And so
And how far is a 50K?
30, I think it's technically 31 something or other miles, but
Okay.
this one ended up being 33.
33.
Yeah, we did 33 miles on that one. And
33 miles on your feet.
Was that here?
no,
is
that was Salem, Oregon, actually.
Oregon, okay.
Silverton. Yep, Silver Falls is the race. Beautiful, pouring down rain. I mean, just miserable.
just miserable?
Absolutely miserable. I mean,
It was.
It's a
So-
wonderful life.
so I'm 2 years into absolute misery. Hate it every time I'm doing it. Why am I doing it? What is this about? I keep coming back for more. I fought through a bunch of injuries, a bunch of IT band injuries. I mean, we had going into our marathon, I had hurt it so bad I couldn't even run 2 miles. I'd have to
Whoa.
walk half of it,
Whoa.
and ended up doing that marathon. And at mile 5, it hurt. I had so much pain. I was ready to take anything I could find for it, and ended up doing the whole 26 miles
How?
in spite of it. Just
pure grit.
keep moving, pure grit. Yeah, just keep moving. Yeah, and definitely wasn't easy. So none of it was ever appealing. It was like my body's not like it now. Granted, my body's I was fighting through some injuries because I just wasn't training. I was just doing it. So
That is amazing to me that you could just do 26 miles.
yeah,
that's-
which has been Quin's kind of like all along is like, wow, if you really put some effort in, like, I wonder where you could go.
Sure.
And I have no desire to put effort
Still.
in. I'm like, I that's where I was always at. But something happened, probably started to shift on that 50K. We did, we were at mile 24.
Yeah.
And we got video, actually. She got video of me. I hit a runner's high like I'd never experienced.
Which you have to totally explain a runner's high. This is fun.
How do you explain a runner's high?
What is a
I
runner's
don't really
high?
feel it anymore, especially not
know.
like that.
Really?
I think
Yeah,
it's
totally.
like when you walk into a room and everyone is hiding everywhere, and then you flick on the lights and everyone jumps out and says happy birthday. It kind of feels like that. Like you just feel amazing.
That's great.
It's great. That's a great word picture.
Okay, great. And it is from running and pushing through and break through, and then at some point you hit this runner's high.
Yeah. So nice big high.
Is that like endorphins kicking in?
Yeah,
and
it is.
Just like your body's like
sure, yeah.
getting
Physiologically,
getting
yeah.
to you what it need, what
Yeah.
you need to keep going.
Yeah, everything's firing on all cylinders.
Wow.
Everything is right.
Yeah. So we had hit this. I hit this. And you know, I'd had some lows in the middle of it, and found myself kind of what was really pushing me was just a lot of stuff we've learned in just the identity and, you know, just this culture.
Sure.
So like literally prophesying over myself throughout the whole race.
Wow.
I
That's
was born
amazing.
for this. I was born to run. I was born athletic. This is who I am. Like just constantly reminding myself of who I am when I was in the middle of, you know, oh shoot, why do I keep coming out here? This is miserable. But just continuing to just prophesy over myself. And honestly, that's what kind of got me through that 33 miles. And I didn't run anything at all training wise. I had done like boot camp for a couple weeks, maybe a couple months or a month, something like that, leading up to it. But there was no running. And so it was just, again, just the strength and really, honestly, it was like a lot of that kind of keeping track of my headspace. Hit that runner's high and something clicked. And kind of along this journey too is I found that I hate running on the road. And
Okay.
a lot of what we were doing was road running. And so when we started to getting into these trails, things shifted. It was like, oh, this is different. I like this. This is very fun. Now, my body still hates it, but it's super fun.
But is it become more like of an exploration than it does
You know, I
like
don't.
a hamster in a wheel?
For
or-
her, for Quin, yeah, she has that, you know, like the pioneer kind of. I was on a run, and the Lord kind of opened my eyes to it one day. In fact, I was running out here last year in Cochrane Mill, and the Lord was like, you know, I said, well, because I just found I've now found I just have great connect time with the Lord while I'm out there, and I said, you know, he goes, you know why you like running the trails, don't you? I'm like, no. He goes, because you can't see what's coming, and I was like, oh, that's great. And I'm like, but I just so want to know what's coming. And I'm thinking in terms of life now. I just so want to know what's coming in life. And he goes, and how does that work out for you when you're on the road? I'm like, oh, shoot me in the head.
You don't like
I
it
don't
when
want
you
to
can
see
just
where.
see.
Yeah, he goes, yeah, this is and then he started revealing, like he deals with me according to the way I am, and what makes me thrive, which is keep me in the dark and give me a little bit. And I actually get to enjoy the journey in that regard.
Wow.
Whereas if he gives me the whole end, it just feels like I'm never getting anywhere. So it was just a neat, you know, eye-opening experience. So just finding that I really, really love these trails, and that 50K was the kind of the first come out on a high. Oh my gosh, I was made for this. And that was kind of the start. It still didn't quite stick. I didn't really, honestly, I'm a super competitive person. Like
Okay.
No.
in a healthy, you know, in a healthy way.
on.
Like I just
You-
love healthy competition.
No.
What are you trying to say, Quin?
I'm being
You
a
know,
little facetious.
Yeah. But it never came out in running,
Oh, wow.
in this sport.
Yeah.
You know, I love sports. I love, you know, having fun, that friendly competition, but never did it come out in this. I'd always joke, I'm entering a race I know I won't run, which is kind of absurd considering I'm entering a race that I know I won't win, which is kind of absurd considering I like to win. But it was literally when I had my first DNF, did not finish a race. Like I pretty much kind of rode on my talent as long as I could till my first DNF, and when we didn't finish, like immediately I everything changed, and I went, I need to go to work. like I've reached my end. I need to go to work now and actually put time in. And then I began to reassess everything I was doing in the sport and came alive to it. And that was honestly just in March of this year.
March
Wow.
of this year.
Yep.
And so now you're loving it.
Yeah, I mean, that was really the start of it. And what was the, we went for that 100 and yeah.
Okay.
So there's lots more stories there, but yeah, keep going.
Well, we want to hear those stories. But, okay, so a life in a day. Why? What is it that in this ultra running, and is it all running, or is it the ultra running where you are running and you're going through all of these emotions and it looks like life? How? Like, what is the truth behind that statement?
I think a lot of it is the sort of the journey that you go on in an ultra. Like, I think you touch so many emotions and you touch so many spiritual aspects of your own life and your perspective and what you believe about the world, what you believe about yourself, what you believe about the people you're around, what you believe about what you're doing with your life, what you believe about the Lord. Like, it all just comes to surface in the middle of an ultra over time, over effort. It all comes out. Nothing keeps you more honest than an ultra.
Why? What makes it come out?
It's the pressure. It's the pressure of what you're doing. It's the pressure of the goal. I mean, when the race director says at 5 o'clock in the morning, he says, "I will see you sometime tomorrow. Go." You know,
Kind of sets in.
oh, and he lets
What
you
you're doing.
loose into the forests, and you realize like the overwhelmingness of that moment and the goal that you have ahead of you can almost defeat you before you even start the race.
Yeah.
And I feel like life can feel like that. Like, if you look at your life in its entirety from a place of defeat before you even start, you may never truly start.
Well,
and
that's
so
great.
it just can parallel your life so easily just as you're going throughout, because then you start thinking about what can I do? Can I really do this? I don't know if I can do this. And then you start to have to choose what you're going to believe. You know, do I believe all the people who have supported me up to this point? Do I believe what God says about me? Do I believe what I've said about myself? Or do I believe in what I can't do? Do I believe, that this isn't possible? Am I going to give up right now? Is it, has all this training been for nothing? So all this stuff, and I think 75% or more is all in your head.
75% of an ultra running race is mental.
It's just mental.
Most of running is.
Most of what we're doing out there is a mental fight. It's not even about our ability, really.
Whoa.
Because if you think about it logically, you've done the training, you've done everything that you need to. You start healthy, you're ready to go. All the work's been done. Now it's up to you to believe that you can do it.
Wow.
And it takes revisiting that thought again and again and again, because you have time.
Yeah, that's all you got.
You have a
Lots of
lot of
time.
time. And all the distractions of what we would call real life are just not there. And they're not going to be there as much as you want them to be there. Oh, I'd much rather be Netflixing and chilling right now. I'd much rather be having a cup of hot cocoa with my family. Like, all these things, the comforts of what we find comfortable just are ripped away. Everything is ripped away, and it's just down to your thoughts. It's down to what you believe. It's down to, what he says about you.
Is this why you guys do it?
Oh, the why.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. That's a huge part of what it is, because it really, and it's part of that pioneering spirit.
Sure.
It's just, what was that quote that we just heard the other day? When a journey leaves you asking questions you never thought to ask, in the beginning. Like, I can't think of the quote, but it's something like that. Like, it's just that pioneering spirit, that it's the more.
Wow.
Every time I start, whether I finish or not, I always discover more. I discover that I had more than I could ever think. My abilities, I have more than I more mental capacity to conquer what I think I can conquer or what I don't think I can conquer, and I find out that I can't means nothing because it's not about what I can or can't do. It's about truly about what I'm going to do. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to run.
Yep.
So do you rediscover this in every single race, or how much of this is established and helps you at work, helps you with the kids, helps you with the family?
I think it's rediscovered depending on the length of the ultra. In the 100-miler, in a 50-miler, those ones, it's rediscovered over and over again because you have your highs. You eat well and you feel good and you run and I'm bored for this and this is amazing. And then you go, oh my gosh, an hour later or more, you go, I can't do this. I don't know what I'm doing. I should stop. You just start to panic. But it's that pushing through the I can't, through the fear, through the anxiety, through all that stuff. Anxiety means nothing to me, because I've pushed through it so many times. And I know that there's more and there's better and there's me on the other side of that, who I really am. And so it's discovering that time and time again through an ultra. It just becomes this natural language, in everything that I do with my kids, the fears and anxieties of parenting, the obstacles that you come up against in parenting or in school or in, everyday life, finances,
Right.
Life goals not met, somebody failing you who said they would, do this and they don't. And, you just get to choose in your life to fold, to say, I can't, to give up, to walk away, or you can press through and believe in who he says you are and believe in who the people around you who support you. Because we couldn't do these races half the time without our support team, without people to help us along the way.
Yeah, so that was bringing me to a question I was thinking about is, what's the culture like when you go to these races? Not only the immediate people that you obviously have around you for support, but even the extended culture of people around
Who
that.
runs these races with you people?
Yeah.
You guys would not believe. Do you want to? It's when you show up to start an ultra, open your eyes and look around because you see people of all different abilities,
Wow.
all different ages, all different shapes, all different sizes. It's beautiful, and they all are bringing their entirety to that race, because they're all going to go through it. They're all going to shed some stuff and pick stuff up along the way. So it naturally leads to you start chatting with a guy, people start sharing their stories, everyone's helpful, they help each other out. Hey, how are you doing? Are you okay? Do you need something? All along the way.
Wow.
And then there's people at the aid stations. They're incredible. They stand out there for 24 hours or more, and they just serve.
Wow.
They just serve. They cook you up the best quesadillas you have
Best
ever
grilled
eaten.
cheeses.
Oh my gosh, I had
Oh yeah, because you got to be burn. It's got to burn fast.
Oh yeah, and they're taking care of you.
Yeah.
Pizza, we had pizza on one of the last ones.
Yeah.
Oh, I literally had tears spring to my eyes.
mile 30.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
and I mean literally.
Literally.
Yeah, I literally started to cry.
Yeah.
Because your emotions are all over the place.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
pizza.
All the boundaries are down. Pizza!
See?
They had a pizza oven at mile 30. I mean, what is going on?
Wow.
And in this ultra community, in these great races that we're running, these people find the most creative ways to serve you
Wow.
and bring joy in your life because they know that what you're doing is really, really hard. They know that you're risking stuff to be out there. They know that you're going to be in emotional lows or in the I can't zone. And so they just bring the best of themselves to these races
So
and
great.
show off, just
Wow.
joy.
Wow.
And so to be around people like that is just a blast.
Wow.
It's very, the whole trail running culture is very, everybody's for each other.
Yeah.
There's not, a measuring up. What are you doing here? I wouldn't wear that gear. You know what I mean? The kind of a picking, at each other. That doesn't exist. It's
Yeah.
very,
Wow.
everybody's kind of just an equal on the same playing field and just so excited that,
Yeah.
you're going for it. we're going for it, whatever, but there's just very for each other.
Yeah. Everybody wants to see you finish. You want to see everyone else finish. Like, we were passing people in our last race at one point, and like, I struggle sometimes with passing people because it can be demoralizing a little bit if you're having a rough time and you have 5 people pass you. But as I was just passing these people, like, they're still like, good job, you're doing amazing. And I'm like, you too, I'll see you at the next aid station. Like, we've got this, you know.
Wow.
It's just such a beautiful community.
Yeah. So for even elite racers, like, this is their perspective. I mean, we had
Wow.
heard one story where 2 guys kind of like fell in step for, I can't remember how many miles it was left in that 100, but fell in step with each other and just kind of trudged away and got to the end and kind of looked at each other like, okay, who's going to break for the finish line? And they ended up just running it in together and finishing it together. Like, there was just such a camaraderie and it's just a real beautiful community and connection in the culture. So it's very attractive. I mean, we love it. They're definitely the edgy side of running. So it's always good fun.
Because I don't know if we've made it clear, but a marathon is on a road. You're running, not straight, but I mean, you're on a road.
Yep.
Ultra, again, you mentioned in the woods. You guys are up mountains. I mean, at one time, were you guys on the Oregon?
So trail running
Okay.
is in the mountains.
Gotcha.
Ultras, they have road ultras as well. So
Okay.
you can do ultra running. It's anything over a marathon. So there's plenty of ultras that are happening on pavement.
Okay.
But kind of what we have and what I have found that I absolutely love, but we have kind of fell in step with is this trail running,
Okay.
specifically community. So definitely out in the woods and definitely out in the woods and
Yeah.
sometimes Kentucky in the middle of nowhere.
Absolutely.
Deep in the middle of nowhere.
So what about the people that you bring with you that are your support there? Like, what's that relationship and connection like, and how does that play out through a race?
Yeah. So we when you kind of get into the longer races, I think GDR was the first one where it was like 100K, so 75-ish miles. It was a little more than 100K, but
Emphasis on the ish.
emphasis on the ish. Yes, it's very backcountry. So that one kind of was our first time we'd had a crew. A crew can show up with extra, kind of basically a bin full of stuff that you want to repack your pack and maybe change out shoes, change out socks or something like that, so they can meet you at a couple points during the race. And also they can have a pacer. And so someone can come in and run with you after half of the race is done. And a lot of times that's going into the night. And so it's always good to have a kind of a spotter basically and make sure you're not running off the trail and falling into a bush, but keeping you straight.
Keeping you awake?
Yeah, keeping you awake sometimes.
Literally, which I want to
That
hear a
was
story
helpful.
about that. Yeah.
But so that's kind of, where the crew comes in, and we had picked up in March. We started doing that, and like straight away after that first one, Brent was on the crew with us, and he was like, "Oh, I'm running this. I'm gonna run one of these." He was gonna pace for us on that race, but we ended up DNFing. But he says, "Oh, I'm gonna start running," and then so we're like, "Well, we better start adding to our crew because our crew's gonna start running." And now literally all of us, there's like 5 of us that are all signed up for a race in May. Was that in May?
Oh, wow.
It's in May.
Your crew.
The crew,
Our
all
whole
of them.
crew signed up.
So we're all doing it. So we're just all going to go run the race. It's a smaller one, it's a 30K, and so we don't
50K.
necessarily. Oh, I'm sorry, 50K, but we don't necessarily need crew for that. But so we just all get to go out and run it, which is fun.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's definitely kind of catching some speed and definitely needing to recruit more. But it's super fun. I mean, we did that 100 in Kentucky. I had only made it 80 miles. Quin made it 90. We had came in, I think it was mile 40. We had saw our crew several times, but when we came into mile 40, it was what a treat to just come in. They got your chair, you sit down in the chair, ripping off your pack. They're packing up your stuff. What do you need? Like I told them going in, I said, you just got to kind of picture it's like Rocky coming out of the ring. And then you just, you're right there and you're working on them. And literally that's how
wow.
they handled both of us kind of the whole, each stopping point, and that just feels so good. It's such a recharge when we came into that 42, I think is what it was. We were at mile 42, and I look good in a picture, but I was not feeling good. I mean, I was having an absolute miserable race that race.
Well, Dan, tell us. I wanted to hear about your process, your emotional process. What are some of the things that you're working through?
So the 100 and I mean, we have yet to, do 100. Like I say, we attempted that 100, 80, 90.
I mean, to finish.
To
Like you guys
finish
did
100,
it. Got
yeah.
super close, 80 and 90. I mean, you're right
super
there.
close. Yeah, Quin was shredding it. She killed it on that one. But, so they say that. So kind of like my perspective on the day, life in a day is, life literally is full of ups and downs. That's just what life is. It's you've got highs and you've got lows. And I think, what's interesting is, we obviously are probably in a place in society where we don't have this kind of pressure. We can get by living without that kind of pressure. So there's like this rogue sect of people that are going out and putting themselves in such a place that is such an extreme amount of pressure and external pressure.
They're all fine. 2018. Give me
Yeah.
a cell phone and air conditioning. I'll do
Yeah.
it to myself.
Yeah. So really, I think, they say confrontation is strategically applied pressure at any one issue and one point, like a hammer hitting a nail. And really, I think that's you're putting yourself in such an extreme amount of pressure. You're literally confronting yourself. Like that's the journey. So when people ask me, like, wow, what are you doing that for? I'm like, I don't know. Something happens out there. Like something happens out there when you get deep in and you're, 8, 10, 12 hours on your feet and you've got, you're deep in the forest. You see you. And you can't hide you, and that's where Quin says, it keeps you honest.
Yeah.
Like you get squeezed, and if there's anything ugly, it's gonna come out. And I had a lot of races where stuff came out where it was like, oh man, talk about attitude, just a super bad attitude.
Like for instance, give us a for instance. What do you mean?
Yeah. So I mean, just this 100 miler we attempted in Kentucky. Man, it started. Sometimes you have good races, and sometimes you don't have good races. It's kind of a weird little thing. I mean, that's how it is in sports. Sometimes,
Sure.
your 3-point shot's on, sometimes it's off. And
Yep.
so it's that kind of a feel, where, and it started for me the night before going in. I it started raining. I was stressed. I didn't want to run in the rain. I mean, I'm yeah. So I was just being a baby. I was like complaining, and if not so much out loud, definitely in my inner world, like, not wanting to run in the rain, not wanting to be uncomfortable, but, going to go run 24 hours. So, we go in and immediately, like, I was exhausted. I had sprained my ankle. You remember that? I sprained my
Remember
ankle
that.
10 days before. So I'm, I've got that I'm dealing with. Literally, like, within 5 miles, I have to stop. I can't keep up. Quin's, like, shredding. And I'm like, you see you. And all of a sudden I'm like, I didn't train enough. I'm injured. I didn't sleep enough. So you start talking to yourself about all the reasons why you can't. And really was thinking, wow, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. And I'd like to think that, went away, but really it didn't, not this time.
Wow.
Not on that race. It was there pretty much the whole race. I'd hit some good strides where I'm like, okay, this feels good. But overall, it was, lots of pain. I had lots of pain in my body. So I'm having to kind of work through a lot of that and not wanting to be there, not thinking I can, not thinking I've trained enough. This isn't fun.
Did you prophesy yourself again?
That race, I was in a weird place. No, I actually several times during it, like, okay, Lord, where are you? Because normally you're here, and it didn't feel like he was there.
So it's just
We know he's there, but I definitely wasn't aware of his presence. And so, yeah, I mean, it was just a grind out. That whole run, it was absolutely miserable.
You made it 80 miles in that environment.
Yeah, 80 miles. I mean, I hit mile.
It's impressive.
We picked up our pacer at 42. You know, that was good. We hit some good strides. Once I hit to mile 50, 55, I was like, okay, I did 50 the year before, and this is night and day. I feel night and day different than that race. So I'm feeling that's kind of encouraging. Still, we both hit a low right around that time that was really hard for us to get out. So we probably ran 5 or 10 miles on that in that low, and then picked up our second pacer. And at that point, I'm mile 60, 62 or something like that. I'm like, I think I should probably stop. Like, I think maybe, like, if I go any further, we're at a crew, I'm going to have to run 20 miles before I see my next crew stop. Like, you know, so I don't want to get stuck at an aid station. So maybe I'll turn around. And so I'm like, yeah, just totally not in a good headspace. And ended up...
Well, because that, not a good headspace,
Yeah.
to me, a non-runner sounds like, man, you're thinking it through. That's like, shouldn't you be thinking that? I mean, that sounds
No.
like common sense,
And
but
so-
that is not a good headspace. That's defeat.
Yeah, so this is the thing is you know, what you realize is you just, you know, you lie to you.
That is lying to you.
Yeah.
When you have 20 miles and you're not feeling it, wow.
Because I not only did I do the 20 miles, we hit mile 72, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just head back to the truck. I told Quin we had this little loop thing, 8-9 mile loop. No, oh, I don't remember what mile we were at. 4 mile. I can't remember. Whatever it was, 4 miles. And I said, hey, I'm heading back to the truck. She goes, no, you're not. She said, you're gonna grab some food, start walking. And I'm like, no, I'm done. Like I was done. I was done for 20 miles. And she's like, no, just grab some food and keep walking. And then I ended up catching her and gaining 10 minutes on my time in that stretch. So it's like,
So that's why you say it's not a good headspace, because you actually know you can do it.
you actually have it in you, but you don't think you do, and your body's telling you don't, and everything's confirming that you don't. So it's really easy to believe that you don't.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is, you actually do have it in you.
And you don't know that truth until you just do it.
Actually experience it.
Right.
Which is what, you know, so all the ups and downs, you know, all the craziness, by the time you're done, even when I finished, I knew I wasn't making the 80-mile cutoff, but I'm like, I felt very accomplished. Like I ran 80 miles, 25 and a half hours, like 80 miles. Like I felt like, and I was in the worst place ever in my head. It was literally the worst race I'd run.
So it's not a reasonable reason that you hadn't slept in 25 hours to stop at that point, because you know that you've got it in you.
Yeah, because you can
Right.
do more. Like
Okay.
you actually can. That's the thing is
Kevin, we need to start running.
that's and
I
I
feel
think,
like I need to do an ultra.
I think that's the, you know, the piece that you pull into daily life is you just realize, oh my gosh, there's to think that we are, you know, get upset with such minor little pieces of resistance that happen in our life, you know, like it seems silly now when you've now have experienced something else, and so you're literally changing your standard, you're changing your benchmark, if you will.
Wow.
So yeah, so it changes your approach at life.
So I can see, Quin, your approach at life. I mean, no more anxiety. You're not dealing with anxiety and fear and things like that on the level of just shut down,
Right.
losing your breakfast.
Yeah, exactly. I still deal with anxiety. I definitely sometimes before races, you know, I just feel like total anxiety, but it's different. It doesn't have a hold on me.
So it's a marked
Whatsoever.
difference these 5 years from the running.
Significantly
And,
different.
and Dan, in your like day-to-day life, your standard is that higher, and it's from pushing through in these races.
Yeah, I mean, pushing through and just realizing what you're capable of, and realizing we're actually stronger than we think. We really think limited, and you don't know it because we're not really in a place where we
don't put ourselves
experience
in
a
that
lot
position.
of opposition or resistance. In fact, if we do anything, we run from it,
Well,
which is society.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh,
What do you mean?
Oh, well, our society is made up of making things easier.
More
So,
convenient.
Yeah, more convenient, more ease.
Comfortable.
So we never really actually experience what we're made of because we're never tested.
Wow.
So this literally puts that in, it forces that to happen. And that's the discovery part of, oh my gosh, I remember that first year we did that 50K, and literally the whole next year I was doing construction and roofing, and I remember I'd be just grinding out a day of tear off and install, and I'd be like, no, I can run 30 miles. No, I've ran 30 miles. I can do this. Like it literally created a benchmark. A new place. But, so I do want to say that all the runs aren't like that. This last one we just did, this 50 miler, it was night and day. My experience.
Great. It was good.
Oh, it was fantastic. It was the best run I'd ever had.
Best run.
Yeah. So it's not, I don't want to paint a picture of like, well, shoot, Dan, why do you keep going back? It's like, well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I ask often.
What made this race different? Was it just like you said, some races are great, some races are not great?
Yeah, what, I think what really helped to contribute to it, because going in, it was the same thing. I hadn't ran, hardly ran even going into that 100-miler, but going into this one, I had sprained my ankle again, a second time, and this one was very much worse than the first time. And so I virtually was off of it for 5 weeks going into this race, and I ran, the week before, I went out and did, a handful of like 6-milers. Did I do a 9-miler one week? I may have one day. So, but that was like only running I did going into it. So I'm thinking I'm undertrained. I'm got the hurt ankle. So I'm starting to go there in my head. But I remembered something I said when I was teaching one night.
Oh, that's always helpful.
That's always helpful.
You teach to yourself.
It's one of the big benefits of teaching.
Yeah.
All teasing aside, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's something I say to my kids. I say, oh, no, you get to choose your attitude. Like, that's a choice. Like, I get to choose that. The things happening around me don't get to choose how I'm going to have my attitude in that. And
Wow.
And so going into this race, I was like, okay, I'm not doing what I did last time again. And so I just managed my attitude going in and said, oh no, I'm choosing to be happy. I'm choosing to be excited about this. And because really, in spite of what, my body physically might argue with me and even my soul at times, but really my spirit thrives in this environment. And I, as my spirit, am loving where I'm at right now, regardless of those other pieces. Yeah. So I get to stand on that. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
So that, going in, and what's funny is I hit a low spot, and it was just one of those races. I think all of us were kind of having a similar experience where we just felt tired. My legs felt heavy. It felt like I was carrying bricks around.
I think we started in a monsoon and we're
Oh,
knee-deep
that's
in mud. So I believe that's what contributed to the heaviness.
Full on storm.
You're like, they weren't bricks on your
sideways
legs.
rain.
Trees
Trees falling while we're running.
Whoa. So it wasn't
And
bricks on your legs, but
Full
it was
trees
mud.
On the road.
Literally
on
mud.
the trail.
Wow.
During the day race, it had fallen. Like it was, all the trails had become creeks. Like it was, my feet were soaked from 10 minutes in.
Was it cold?
For the whole day. Yeah, it was in its 50s, so low 50. I think it got to 50 by the end of the day, so it got a little cold at the end. But
it's cold in the morning.
Yeah, maybe it was a bit.
It's so uncomfortable.
Oh, it was so uncomfortable. But in the middle of it, it was like, even going into that, I'm like, oh no, I'm going to choose my attitude. And so I'd had a low, I think it was around mile 20 something, 20, probably between 20 and 25, and hit this little bit of a low and kind of caught myself. I was in the middle of it, started going there in my head thinking, oh man, my legs are tired. I'm undertrained. Quin's done so good. She's so strong. And excuse me. And
wow, in his low place, you're killing it, Quin. That's great.
she's killing it.
In his
Typically
lowest
how we operate
wow.
in
That's awesome.
races, for sure.
And so I caught myself and I said, oh, no, I get to choose my attitude. And I said, oh, I'm happy to be here. And I just started practicing being thankful for where I'm at, but maintaining an attitude of gratefulness of oh, look at where I get to be right now. Look at the scenery. Look at, look where I get to be. You know what I mean? And like
Sure,
just really
sure.
practicing that attitude adjustment. And literally within probably 100 yards, I actually felt, your feelings follow your thoughts.
Yeah.
And so I actually felt the rush of the high come back.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, there you are. I said, oh, I'm back. I'm like, okay, here we go. And from that point,
Yeah.
like, we just started pushing.
I remember the look on your face. I turned back around, and here you come, smiling, chasing after me. It was great.
Yeah, she was leaving me behind. It's like, she said, hey, I'm catching that guy up there. I'm like, oh no, I'm with you on that. We're going to catch that guy.
Yeah.
So I caught up. But
And then
yes.
you took the lead.
Yeah, so we really, and then at that point, we kind of pushing into mile 29, and I had ran out of food. And like literally, I'm trying to find anything I can in my bag. I'd ran out of water, and I'm like, so we really started pushing it, because I knew if I slowed down, it was going to start being a spiral, because then I was going to lose energy, and then I was going to go slower. And I'm like, so that's why when we came into that aid station and they had pizza, I literally had tears spraying to my eye. I'm like, and I just went right for it. My kids were there, and I'm like, and I still feel bad. I'm like, I went to the pizza.
Love you kids, but Daddy's
I got
got
the pizza, and then I saw the kids.
Daddy needs sustenance.
But what was wild
Wow.
about that race is that, we had, by the time we got to the end, I hit mile 40 and like came alive. Like literally at that point I started clicking off mile times faster than we started.
Wow.
And I'm like, and it was into the hardest section of the race,
Yeah.
in the dark, lots of technical cliffs, roots, and just flying. And I said, and I literally had the thought, oh, I bet I could do 100 right now. Like, I bet I could just keep going. Like, I hit that
Unbelievable.
kind of stream. And that's the thing, though, is in spite of all those lows, it's not true. And that's the you don't know
That's
that until you
helpful.
push through.
Yeah.
And then experience the high on the other side. And then you're like, oh no, it ends. There's a saying, we had read a book, North by Scott Jurek? And he talked about his this kind of old timer trail running guy, and he would say it never always gets worse. It never always gets worse.
It never always gets worse.
Never. And that's
Wow.
it's the truth. It just doesn't always get worse. It eventually bounces back. You just got to keep going. You keep
It
pushing,
never always
and you
gets
pop
worse.
out. Never.
Gosh,
that-
you guys, I have so many questions. But one, in our culture today, not our Bethel culture, but just abroad in culture today, we live with folks that need you to listen to all of the excuses why they cannot. And that is considered love. That's considered empathy. That's considered, so much of what is just across the board. You're not being empathetic. How in the world are you functioning knowing what you know now that you've learned out on the trails? What in the world? Like how, what
Just
are your
with
thoughts?
people and society in general and
Yeah.
culture.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, when people come to you with this is empathy and 100 miles at a time, 50 miles at a time, that's not empathy. You're letting the air out of your own tire. You're defeating yourself. You're accepting defeat. What is your response? Like, how do you function in 2018?
I think it's overwhelming joy and hope, and you just see the human race a little bit differently.
I bet.
I think and
Yeah.
when people come to you hopeless and defeated, this inner truth just burns like to no end of you can. It's going to be okay. Believe it or not, like this truth just wells up, I just carry this big, giant, fat gold truth around with me everywhere I go and just believe. I just believe in people so much more.
so much.
Whoa.
So much more than
Wow.
I ever have. I
So
just
courage
see-
Because you
comes
just-
up and out of you for folks.
Wow.
You
Absolutely.
encourage. Wow.
Because
Yeah.
you just know.
You know.
You know what they're actually are capable of.
Right.
Yeah.
They
That's
just don't know
great.
yet.
And it's
They just don't know.
it's just this undeniable truth. Like you know that people can just do more than they think. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful to see.
It's beautiful.
I just go in the grocery store and I'm, picking out apples, and I just look at people differently. And, because you see people finish these ultras. I'm rubbing shoulders with, 70-year-old women who are just
Running ultras?
making their own way to the finish in their own style, in their own fashion, for their own reasons, and they do it.
Wow.
And it's just
That's
unbelievable.
amazing.
Yeah, so I just see people everywhere just differently. You just hear the world differently.
So Dan said earlier, much earlier, that the test, what did you say about a test? And when you've been tested and you see that you can pass it, it changes everything. This is your experience too.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's possibly a lack of tests. Would you agree that we have a lack of tests? You agree too?
Yeah,
We have
sure.
a fear of resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Whenever there's if there's ever resistance in our life, what do?
We go, oh, okay, and sit down.
We think,
Oh, all right, okay.
well,
that was what I needed to hear.
in our culture, we think it's a devil attacking us.
Oh, gotcha. I wasn't thinking.
No,
That's
it's
awesome.
just life. In fact, if you're not going somewhere where you've never been, you'll never have that. If you go somewhere you've never been, why would you be surprised that you have resistance?
Yeah.
What would you say to the person that would like to go where they've never been, but is just frozen?
I would just say try.
Mm.
And I would say get people around you who believe in you more than you believe in yourself, first and foremost. And I would say that just try. Just try small, achievable goals, consistency, move toward your dream, move toward what it is that you want to grow in or what it is that you want. Small, achievable goals, having people around you who believe in you more than you believe in yourself. And then just keep going after it until you believe it yourself.
That's helpful, Quin. Quin
That's
Weber,
so great.
I heard a rumor about you on this last race from one of your team members that you were falling asleep, which everybody does, right?
Oh, that was
And their
good.
job,
People
This
do
was the
fall
100?
asleep.
that their job was to, hey, Quin, wake up, you're sleeping and running, but you didn't stop.
Yeah.
You just had your little poles.
Yeah. First and foremost, I had Stephanie with me after mile 60. Oh, and see, the thing with crew is they drop everything to come and follow you around the backwoods of Kentucky and Tennessee in
It's
a
amazing.
suburban. They experience the same things we're experiencing: the lack of sleep,
sleep.
the trying to find what to eat, where to eat, how to eat. They're, they don't quite know, where they're going out there, and they're just figuring it out to come and serve us. So she jumps on the trail.
It's wild.
She's amazing. So she's fresh, ready to go. It's like 1, 2 in the morning, something nuts like that, right?
And you've been running for how many hours at this time? At this point?
Several.
Maybe 12,
Wow.
18,
Wow.
19.
19 hours at that point. So she
19 hours running, no sleep, and eating
Yeah.
along the way.
So she
Wow.
pops on, and she's doing amazing. So I'm having serious stomach issues out there in the woods with no bathrooms around. So it had been a struggle since mile 10.
Yeah.
And so I'm having to be really diligent with my nutrition. I'm feeling extra exhausted. We're still trucking along, and we're starting to now fight cutoffs. They pull you off the course at specific times. You have to reach specific points. Otherwise, you have no business being out there, and they need to pull you off for safety. So we're starting to fight that cutoff. So me and Stephanie are trucking along, and at this point, it was like 4 in the morning, and I started 4:30 is when it finally started to hit. I started wanting the sun to come up, and I started thinking, when is the sun going to come up? Like, it's got to come up at some point. And I just started to spiral downhill and started getting really exhausted. And sure enough, just holding on to I had these hiking poles and just moving them. And then I would start thinking about something nice, something comfortable, probably something delicious. And then I have Stephanie yelling back at me, Quin, keep moving. What are you doing? Are you awake? And there's cliffs, there's all kinds of there's this caution tape, do not cross, and it's
Red caution tape.
red caution tape. There's a
Wow.
ravine, it's not safe. And so
She left
thankfully-
me at this point, by the way.
I had left
She's gone.
him.
I'm flying solo now.
Yeah. And at this point, I'm struggling to keep awake, but we're fighting these cutoffs, so I have to keep moving no matter what. And so Stephanie's stock went up, unbelievably. And at one point, I'm like seeing these bat birds popping up out of the bushes because I'm starting to get a little delirious. I'm seeing these weird lights that I think are headlamps, and I keep asking Stephanie over and over, are those other runners? And she's like, they're just reflective tape. Like, just keep moving. She's just telling me to keep moving, and I'm talking about all these other things. I started talking about childbirth. I was like, if I can have a baby at 4:30 in the morning, I can certainly run 100 miles. Like, all these crazy thoughts are popping out of my mind all at once. And she's just amazing. Like, she has never paced before. I've never had a pacer before.
Oh, wow.
So we're all new at this.
Stephanie
and at one
is
point,
amazing. She is.
I'm like, where are we? Like, are we at the aid station yet? This mile 80 aid station. It's like, I don't know, 6 something in the morning now. It's 6:30, maybe 7. Anyway, the cutoff is coming. So Stephanie looks back at me and like, I'm asking all these questions. When are we going to get there? Are we almost there? And she goes, Quin, right now, you have to give it everything that you have. You have to move. And
She said it a little bit more like forceful than that.
she totally,
A little more stank on that one.
Yeah.
it was the most crazy moment. Like, will never forget the look on her face, the confidence that she had in me, because at that point I was getting delirious and absolutely losing my confidence. And as a result, losing my nerve, and as a result, losing my balance and my ability to go forward. And she just snapped me out of it with just her words and her confidence.
Wow.
And so she spun around and started running, and I started following the little shiny birds on the back of her shoes. And by mile 80, we are both in a full sprint, like full strides, bombing down this mountain into this 80-mile aid station. She's screaming, runner, because I've got 5 minutes before I'm going to get cut out of this race at mile 80.
Whoa.
And she's just pulled me right in.
Wow, you're not kidding
So
about your team.
what were we at, 24 hours and 80
No,
miles?
this is like 25 or 26 hours in. Or something
And
like that.
sprinting.
I never thought that would be possible. It was insane.
And it
Wow.
had started raining yet? It started raining a little
At
bit.
that point, it was like 7 in the morning. The sun was
Still
supposed to
not
come up. It was supposed to come up. Instead of the sun coming up, I'm walking out of this aid station. And at this point, I thought I was going to be alone for the last 20 miles because Brent had come in and run from mile 40 to 60. Stephanie came in and did 60 to 80. I'm thinking these guys are done, so I'm going to run the last 20, quote unquote. And so I start taking off out of the aid station, delirious, but just happy to be, because nothing's taking me off that course unless they tell me I can't go on. So they let me go. I'm stumbling out of this aid station, delirious. Then the rain starts to come pouring down. No sun's coming up today. It was just defeated, and I just get exhausted from that sprint out of nowhere. And I see Brent is walking next to me. And he's still continuing to walk next to me outside this aid station. And you can get disqualified for that if it's not like within the rules. But come to find out, he was pacing me and I didn't realize it. And I look at him and I'm like, Brent, what are you doing here? And he's like, I'm with you all the way to the end. And I was like,
wow.
oh my gosh. I said, Brent, I need a minute. So I was outside the aid station. I could take a minute. And I grabbed my poles and I laid my forehead on my poles and I just had a good cry. Because I was so overwhelmed with just humility and gratitude for what Stephanie had just done for me to get me to that point and beyond. And then just overwhelming awe that Brent was stepping back into the course with me and was going to carry me through with all the joy in the world.
Sure.
Like, it was just such a place of vulnerability, humility, honor, pride, courage, hope. I mean, it was just a mess. It was just a beautiful wreckage of everything that is good. And so, yeah, I had a little cry at that point. But, yeah.
Wow, you guys, Webbers.
It brings new
Wow.
light to that whole, if you ask me, if you ask you to Mike, walk a mile, you'll go 2. You're like, oh, okay. If I ask you
Yeah,
to
you
run
guys
50,
go
you'll go
100.
100.
Ask me to go 100. I'll go 100. Oh, wow. Webbers.
That's
wow.
awesome.
Oh, my goodness. You guys, thanks. This process is beautiful and rich and helpful. Thank you very much.
I honestly think it just completely preaches a message without actually, like saying, okay, we're going to open your Bible to this and here's the gospel. I mean, really, like, it is so rich
Yeah.
with just purpose and passion. And thanks for coming on and sharing. It's so good.
Oh, thanks for
So
having us.
great.
It's our pleasure.
Can
Yeah.
people get in touch with you at an email address? Do you have like GritFit? Is there any, if people are interested or wanted to ask questions about the podcast, is that a thing?
GritFit Facebook page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So just search GritFit.
GritFit Facebook page.
GRITFIT.
Yep.
No dashes or hyphens.
No dashes.
Okay.
Okay.
That's the Webbers.
Yeah. I mean, that might be, or just Facebook
Okay.
Messenger or something.
Just hit
like
us
that,
up on Facebook.
Okay.
Whatever. Or see us around town.
Do got to put a big shout out. Brent Brownlee ran this last 50-miler with us and has accomplished his first ultra.
That is
Yeah.
way to go,
Whoa.
Big
Brent
hats off to
Brownlee.
him.
He did so
he did
good.
fantastic.
By our last few miles, mainly what I was saying out loud is, babe, I'm so proud of Brent. He just crushed it. He just did so well. He just stayed so positive
Wow.
the whole time.
Wow. That sounds just like Brent. But
Sounds like Brent.
now it does sound like Brent, but it's Brent now even in a 50-mile race. So go Brent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is
Brent
just
was
Brent.
squeezed, and what came out was more of Brent. More of that beautiful positivity and encouragement and just joy. It
Yeah,
was
that's
great to see.
awesome.
That's
it was an honor.
incredible.
And then Stephanie Maddox, who's she just told the story of, is signed up to do her first ultra in January. So
She's
she'll be doing a
great.
50K.
Yep.
So that's gonna be good. So
Wow.
Webbers, look
Catching
at
on.
you. I know, helping folks do the thing. Well, thank you
amazing.
guys.
Yeah.
We appreciate you. This is insightful and helpful and rich and wonderful.
Yeah, I
We
think
love
for
you.
having us.
probably a good idea to take this podcast and post it on your GritFit page if we can.
yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, as well as
Absolutely.
as well as on the podcast.
Yep.
At on the Bethel app as well. But it'd be a great place to post
Oh,
that.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, BA chats. Yay.
Wow.
Another wonderful BA chat. Things to think about. I'm going to leave and just process through this and see if there's any courage in here to start running.
Yeah. I think I'm just going to try that goal of just running to the end of the driveway. That's going to be me
That's where it starts.
tomorrow.
That's right. That's where it starts.
That's where it
Coons.
starts.
Absolutely where it starts. With
It'll fool you. The first 5 miles are always hard. Still,
Still,
no matter
huh?
what. First 5 miles. Once I get past the 5, it's like my body gets used to what I'm doing, and then just autopilot. So
Wow.
sometimes you got to push past the.
The driveway?
Sometimes you got to push past the stuff going on inside.
Yeah.
But small achievable goals.
small,
Okay.
achievable
That's
goals.
beautiful.
Sometimes
You
it's
guys-
just about getting out the door.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, we love you.
Yep.
You guys remember that Jesus loves you.
We love you too.